So, my name's Josh Cooper. I'm the head strength and conditioning coach at Redemption Strength and Conditioning, and this is my gym to play in. So I'm originally from England. I've been here 4 years. I've been in New Plymouth for 3 years. I originally came here backpacking around New Zealand, and I enjoyed New Zealand so much that I decided to stay. So the main focus of Redemption Strength and Conditioning is a hub for people to come and get stronger. So we specialize in powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting style movements. So we have teams that represent us at national level. But we also work closely with athletes, sport-specific training. So we're affiliated with Sportswood United Rugby Club, for example, and we work with other rugby teams and players to get them fitter and stronger for their sports using the styles of lifts that we got here. But we also focus on their conditioning, so whether that's flexibility, mobility, it could be speed or power, acceleration, so anything that creates a player more dynamic in their position on the field. I've been in this industry a long time. I've represented myself as an athlete at a schoolboy level. So I used to do motocross, and I used to represent my team and my club nationally. So we used to race all around England. And then I got injured, and that was like a big blow to me as an athlete, and even as a child. And so I wanted to follow the path of sports psychology. So I went to university and I studied sports psychology, but I ended up not enjoying the theory side of things as much. I liked the hands-on style coaching. So I just transitioned all that knowledge and that skill into personal training. So for me, my self-care is getting up early. I'm trying to break that 4:30 a.m. mold. At the moment, I'm around about 5 a.m., but at 5 a.m. I wake up. And then that first hour is for me. So it's whatever I want to do, and for me it's training. So if I was to wake up late, it's training that's on my mind all day. So I stretch at night. So every time before I go to bed, I do a lot of stretching. I get quite tense with all the exercise that I do. Even if I'm not training myself, it's demonstrating it for other clients. And I've noticed for myself over the years that actually takes its toll on the body, is all these demonstrations and just the little things throughout the day. If you've got 10 clients in a day, that's a lot of reps that you're doing extra that you're not aware of. So I always stretch before night. I might do 30 minutes I might find a YouTube video or something of some yoga or some stretching. I like to meditate too. I think meditation for me is twofold. Like I like to sit and be quiet with my thoughts, especially if I've got like a big project on and I need that kind of headspace. But at the same time, meditating for me would be putting my headphones on and going for a walk on the beach. If I'm walking the dog, then that's meditating for me too. It's just that ability to just switch off and just not think for the second. I might focus on the music or I might focus on the dog. So Redemption Strength and Conditioning is not just for the boys. Powerlifting and weightlifting gets a stigma for it being for the big guys. But we actually have quite a lot of children, juniors and females that partake in the sports here too. We actually have 3 girls that represent us at nationals. 2 of them are destined to have regional records as well in their deadlifts. So just by coming in and picking up a barbell and then just enjoying the training can lead to further avenues. I think the biggest change that I've seen in mental health awareness is coming from the older generation. I think that certainly from my parents' point of view, growing up as a child, you learned to be tough and got on with things. Which isn't a bad approach, but then there's still an issue. So I think, for example, my parents being a lot more aware of mental health has now helped some members in my family. Specifically my little brother, he suffered a lot with anxiety. So just having awareness from them and them being encouraging meant that he could deal with that. And I think that I've seen that more from the older generation too, just within my clientele. Just because, you know, it's that age, as I say, they learned to be tough and got on with it. Whereas now we've raised so much awareness, you're getting that support from your parents and your grandparents that you probably needed for mental health. So I think further down the line in the years to come, the generations are going to be stronger because they've got that emotional support and connection, which they probably didn't have growing up. So I think what needs more work with mental health awareness is not so much the awareness of mental health. I think we are all aware of what depression, anxiety, and all those factors are. But I think more needs to be done on the benefits and the solutions of other avenues. For example, lifting weights is got a psychological and a physiological response to endorphins, and even the breaking down of muscle and building muscle brings on confidence. So I think more awareness around those avenues as opposed to what mental health is. So more focus on maintaining well-being as opposed to fixing a solution that's already happened. I think if more people growing up, for example, kids in schools got more into lifting weights properly and less on social media, then there'd be probably a more positive outcome of that. So my personal mental health journey started when I was here in New Plymouth. I've always been a workaholic. I love working, especially from a young age. I had big aspirations, whether it was within my sports, trying to win races, win championships, and I've just carried that on through my life. Even now, I want the best for my clients. If my clients say they want to do a competition, in my mind, I want them to win nationals, but that's just the personality that I've got. But I always want people to maximize their abilities, and I've got a lot of faith in each person to do so. So coming to New Zealand and adjusting and living in this lifestyle, you've kind of adjusted to a much slower pace, whereas back in England, you're used to such a fast pace that you don't get time to stop and think. So it isn't until you're here and you're stopping and thinking that you're realizing that you might have a lot of under dirt, as it were, on your childhood or in your past that you haven't dealt with or that you're burying, and those in its own right have caused blockages for me or barriers to progress forward, even if it's confidence, things like that. So my personal journey has began pretty much from the moment I came to the mountain, and I just realized that I had to give myself more reflection. So March 2019, I got injured whilst I was trying to qualify for my weightlifting nationals. And that set me back quite a long way in my own training, but also in my mindset. So it's probably the biggest injury that I'd ever sustained in myself. Normally I've just broken bones, and I know that it's 4 to 6 weeks and I can be back out on the bike or back in the gym. But when I tore the ligament from my knee, I knew it was going to be a long journey. And I think it was then when it sat in that I've always had a status that I'm a personal trainer or I'm a strength coach. So when that was taken away from me, I felt like I had no purpose. I wasn't the person that I was being. I wasn't in the gym doing what I wanted to do. I couldn't coach or train people when I wanted to train them. There was a lot of grey areas around that with my workplace at the time too. So losing that identity was a big deal for me as a person. And so I needed to deal and reflect on that. And it actually put me in a very depressed mindset. And once I'd realized that identity had gone and it was just me on my own trying to recover from my injury, that's when lots of other factors came into my life, being away from home, maybe even trying to connect with my mum and dad, like I hadn't spoken to my dad for 7-8 years. So things like that was playing its toll too. So with the depression, it hit me hard because I never thought I would get depressed, because I was always a happy-go-lucky person. I was always busy, I was always doing things. That's when I realized that I was just hiding a lot of baggage, I guess you could say, a lot of emotions that I wasn't ready to deal with. So being with my injury, I used that as a time to just go deep and dig it all out and use that to fix myself. And it wasn't a overnight thing, it probably took a good 18 months. And I went to the doctors and I got medication, which is something I never wanted to do, never agreed with it, but it's been the one thing that's actually helped me on my journey. So as much as I'm aware of medication not always being the best solution, and for me it was, because it allowed my brain to get more serotonin levels, as it were, as what those tablets are meant to do. And it allowed me to actually focus on myself. Whereas before, if I was doing lots of meditation or walks in nature, which is all the healthy things, it wasn't balancing out my brain chemicals. So the medication actually did, and then combined with all the other stuff too, that's when I actually saw the light and fixed myself, I guess. Mental health for me, like I'm fully aware of things that make you happy. You know, it might be bowling with your mates, or it might be going out for dinner, or it might be going to raves, or it might be going clubbing. All those things in its own right make you happy. But, you know, if things have gone on in your childhood, then that's the blueprint, I think, for your characteristics and your personalities. And that can't be avoided. So I think growing up, if I was to tell my younger self something, I would probably just tell him to keep having fun and just enjoy all the little things. And if there's any stuff that stirs up along the way, then you've just got to deal with it head on, as opposed to hiding it. So I've never really dealt too much with people that have opposed mental health. I certainly haven't experienced any kind of boomer responses, as it were. Even in situations where you would think it wouldn't be accepted, like in sports teams, working with the Taranaki Bulls and working with Spotswood United, I've seen a complete opposite. You know, the boys have been so supportive of any situation that's happened. There's been rugby players that have lost family to death, or there's been friends that have committed suicide, or there's been breakups. You know, even things like the players having babies. It's always been a real close bond, and that's been my biggest thing with the rugby culture. Is I know that it gets a bad press and a bad stigma, but I can see why the boys are boys, because it's a brotherhood. And I imagine that's the same in any sports. If it's netball, I imagine the girls are all like a family, just like the rugby boys are. But yeah, if one thing I've noticed, if there's a lad in trouble and he'll speak out, it's well received. So I think that awareness in its own right has been fantastic.